Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in this live premiere. I appreciate it. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you, analysing the latest updates on the Dylan Rounds case presented by Candice Cooley in the interview from yesterday. Okay? Basically, what I've done, I've watched over the interview, which other people didn't want to do, right? And kind of summarised the key points in the correct order. I'm going to read through them today, see what's up, what's the latest stuff going on, any breaking news, any contradictions, and analyse, and maybe give my own thoughts and opinions as we do go along, okay? If you want to check out the previous video I did yesterday, there will be a link down below in the comment section pinned. Feel free to check it out later, and some other links as well if you wish to visit them. As we do go along today, feel free to chat in the chat box, share your thoughts, opinions, reactions on the matter. And, it'd be good to maintain a level of focus today when doing this video, as it's kind of important information and it's to do with the Dylan Rounds case, right? So I'm not going to be pissing about today. Going to be locked the fuck on, okay? What I do want to say, as a form of acknowledgement, I wasn't accurate, but I was very close. You remember that prediction, what I made? I believe it was last week, roundabout. It would have been last week. And I said, wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the week, the interview drops. And I said by the end of Sunday. It was Monday following into the next week, just a day out when the interview dropped. I did say it wasn't a prediction at the time because it would be a bit messy to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes sooner than later. And I was technically right once again. Boom. You see what I mean? A degree of accuracy. Okay? So, yeah. Brief thoughts on the matter, okay? To other people, this interview wasn't that great. A sense of disappointment, right? But I'd say there were some interesting points and some interesting contradictions, and we can get more into it in a second. Regarding comments of the last video, we can check them out as well, but I'll do that later on into the video. I mean, it's time to focus on the latest news, the latest search news regarding Dylan Rounds, okay? Are you ready? So, first point, opening sentence by Candice Cooley in the one-on-one interview with Doug was, she says, "We've been out in lucin." That's what she said. Private searches, keeping a low profile, keeping things quiet so other people don't come on in and cause disruption. I can understand that. In a way, it was like how it was done before winter time of 2022. Similar level of quietness there. Seems to be the new trend. Maybe it's the most effective as well. Said, checking out places of interest. This was, I think, done a couple of weeks ago, and it might be mentioned a bit lower down, okay? So, Doug kind of highlighted it recently about family being out there searching about. Candice Cooley herself has confirmed that they've been out there in recent time in lucin searching for Dylan. So at least we know that. We know the searches are returning now, because as you know, some months ago, a long delay due to the winter, the weather, the snow, ground being hard, all that, but there's more opportunity now to go searching. For Candice Cooley to say places of interest, what that highlights is the potential for either multiple different washes they're checking out, or different types of locations in general. A wash here, a pond there, the ground here, that type. She wasn't too specific, but I understand why, because she's keeping things a bit quiet. But what it highlights is the lack of certainty, right? So people thought that there was a clear direction going on in the Dylan Rounds case. That doesn't seem to be it at this moment in speaking, okay? To be checking out different places of interest, that's either because you feel Dylan is scattered about in different areas, or you just have no clue where Dylan literally is. So you're going to all the spots that may look dodgy, or you might have heard stories about, you've got a few leads going off from them, so that's why you're checking them, ticking them off the checklist, kind of like how they've done in the past. Now, would you say it's been done efficiently, in your own opinion, from the beginning of the case back in 2022, around, 30th of May, all the way up to now? Lucin itself is quite a big area, quite vast and open. From then till now, have enough places been searched efficiently, or could more have been done? We could do a poll right now. What should the poll be? Efficiency of searches, or more so something to do with the places of interest? I think the places of interest is self-explanatory, and by Candice Cooley's tone, there's that lack of confidence there at this moment. Yeah. Right, so the poll can be, do you think that from the beginning till now, places searched has been done efficiently? Or do you feel more could have been done when being out there more frequent, looking at more places than what's currently going on? Let me know your thoughts. Feel free to vote right now, okay? So, good. We've got some confirmation. Family out there in recent times searching for Dylan Rounds, okay? Next point, Candice Cooley says there is a lot going on. It's interesting that there's a lot going on, but there isn't much happening. That's kind of like the overall tone of this interview by Candice Cooley and Doug, such as Brenner's court hearing. And you'll know more about that very, very shortly, okay? Candice Cooley also said, besides a lot going on, there's also a lot of digital information going on in the background. What does that mean, digital information? Is that to do with kind of like the digital forensics when it came to Dylan Rounds' phone? When the police, Ellie, were able to get a hold of that 27-second piece of footage of Brenner cleaning a gun with blood on him in his trailer. Is digital forensics the same or runs alongside digital information? Or is digital information to do with the Dylan Rounds case but not evidence? Does anyone know? Feel free to explain it down below. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. When you hear that, you think, well, that's a good thing, right? Proactive. There's noise, there's concentration, there's focus and consistency. But what about the depth of it? You know, is it truly important? Is it standard procedure? Is it more to do with a lot of stuff going on with the authorities or a lot of stuff going on with the family? Could be a mixture, right? So that's kind of like an open door thing where you try and figure it out for yourself. But maybe by the end of this video analysis, you might come to a better conclusion, okay? Candice Cooley also talking about Dylan's legacy with the seeds, the sunflowers, and all that. And that was mentioned throughout, okay? Now, this is where we move onto the more relevant events which have gone on in recent time, okay? To do with Brenner's court hearing, which occurred on the 24th of April, okay? Now, yes, we already did an early video, arguably, possibly the first, don't know about the first actually, Glorin Dellen did a video herself. So besides Glorin Dellen, we're probably the only ones on YouTube to do a dedicated video covering Brenner's court hearing on the 24th of April. That's quite good. And it was good of Glorin Dellen to pop into the chat recently to share her, knowledge and her experiences, because she was there at the time of when this court hearing was going on, right? So to actually get information passed on, witness reports from people within who were there, present, that's good. And as you know, recently, it's been that focus of getting information from different people here and there, as we've seen, done somewhat successfully, and seeing if there's a level of consistency what's said across all boards or not. So let's now hear it from Candice Cooley, because she was there herself at the time of Brenner's court hearing, okay? So I'll just read out in the order the way she summarised it. Brenner's court hearing, 24th of April. Candice Cooley said Brenner's attorney had conflicts. His original attorney. Now I wonder what those conflicts are. Conflicts of interest. Did the attorney not agree with standing up for Brenner because of what Brenner's done, and the attorney couldn't defend someone like that? Is that the case? Or is there something else going on? If you know, feel free to explain it down below or just share your own opinions. But at the end of the day, that original attorney walked away. So on the 24th of April, when Brenner was in court, there was no one defending him. And because of who he was in his position, he couldn't defend himself. So basically, Candice Cooley said on that day, they appointed a new attorney for Brenner. Okay. And the actual court case was pushed back June the 5th. So really not much else happened, in the words of Candice Cooley. So I guess you could assume there's a level of disappointment, right? What I do want to say, because it wasn't quite explained, if Brenner's attorney never walked away, the original one, and that court case went underway, what would have happened? Would anything have happened? Does anyone know? Because with no attorney being present on that day, not much could be done. So because the attorney not being present, is that what caused the whole case to be pushed back to June the 5th? Because the way I see it, as we said in recent time, it's good that it's pushed back because it gives more time to be able to search for Dylan's remains. I think Candice Cooley isn't worried regardless because she knows Brenner's in custody regardless, end of the day. But it just, in a way, it just works. It works it being constantly pushed back and delayed because maybe it's got its own little psychological effect on Brenner. You think it's going to happen, then not. You think it's going to happen, oh come on, let's just get it over and done with. But no, it keeps being delayed. It could annoy him, it could make him, I don't know, break down. You never know, right? Unexpected things can happen. As said, the only time when maybe a court case being delayed over and over again is truly annoying is when all the evidence has been found. The family are ready for justice and everything's in place. But the actual case itself, the court appearance, keeps being pushed back. That's annoying. In this situation, with the Dylan Rounds case, Dylan still hasn't been found. So really, if you keep pushing these cases back and back, it doesn't really matter because you still need, to bring Dylan home. That's the main importance right now, okay? So, basically, Brenner's court hearing on the 24th was pretty much not great, kind of like deflated. Would people agree with that? Yeah? Now, one thing Candice Cooley did say, because as we said, not just the court hearing itself, but Brenner. How does Brenner appear? His body language, his appearance. And it was kind of mixed from what we've heard by Glorindellen, by another witness there that reported back to one of the Montello locals who passed it on to me, okay, and what Candice Cooley has said. So I'll just do it in the order Candice Cooley worded it, and then I'll contrast to what's been said by others, okay? Candice Cooley said, it looks like Brenner was punched in the eye. Punched in the eye? Glorindellen, would you agree with that? Hopefully Glorindellen is here right now. If not, if people can pass it on to her, these questions, or redirect her to this video, it'll be interesting to see what she says. So, did Brenner get punched in the eye recently? Anyone know? Would it be a surprise? No. Because if Brenner in the past is known for starting trouble, for snapping, taking it out on others, annoying people, and you're in the same environment as other bad people, in that situation, it may well backfire and you get attacked. Times in the past where you might have been the one dominant, it's not quite the same here. Even playing grounds with the people you're surrounded by. But I just feel like it wouldn't make any sense, because I thought the way it's been worded recently, and by Candice Cooley as well, Brenner isn't in the public area surrounded by all the other criminals. He's in custody. He's kind of isolated from other people. And if you're isolated from other people physically, then you're not going to be around others to get into fights or to be attacked. So why would Brenner be punched in the eye? Did he do it to himself? Did one of the guards do it? Was it accidental? Anyone know? I mean, there's times where you can have dark patches underneath your eyes and it could look like bruising, but it's not. I guess at the end of the day, this is just Candice Cooley's observation of what she believes she saw when looking at Brenner, right? So aside from that, Candice Cooley, when referring to the illness part about Brenner dying, Candice Cooley said when she heard Brenner talk in court, he had a very bold, strong, brash voice, right? Not weak, not withdrawn, but strong and bold. A little bit confident, maybe. A little bit cocky, maybe. But is that a contradiction then? Well, let me just do this comparison on the spot. Glorindellen said Brenner wasn't aggressive, wasn't angry. But the other witness that was there, that passed it on to the Montello local, they said initially that Brenner barked when it came to the discussion about Brenner's attorney resigning, walking away because of the conflicts. Barking with the voice, shouting, verbally, the tone, arguably a little bit aggressive, right? That ties a little bit more in line with what Candice Cooley described as the way Brenner spoke. In the eyes of Glorindellen, though, Glorindellen was thinking differently. This may just simply be down to how you perceive a individual when they talk, how they behave. Everyone's got different opinions. Everyone has different observations. People will see things differently and interpret it differently. Not much you can do about that, right? But as for levels of consistency, I could understand what Candice Cooley's saying, Brenner speaking with a bold, strong voice, pairing that in line with what the other witness said, that Brenner was barking, maybe slightly exaggerated, misinterpreted. What they may have meant to say was Brenner was bold and had a strong voice. And when you have a strong voice, it can sound powerful. And when something is powerful, it could be considered a little bit aggressive. Not physically, but verbally. Does that make sense? So we're seeing a little bit of consistency there with Brenner talking, at least, his voice, his vocal range. Next point, though, Candice Cooley, when referring to the actual claim that Brenner is dying, that Brenner's on death's door and very ill, Candice Cooley said, in quotes, "It's not true. It's not true." She said, yeah, he's lost weight, but he's somewhat healthy. He's okay. Brenner is not ill. Okay. When you hear that, that's a positive. You might think, why? You want Brenner to be ill. You want Brenner to suffer. But if Brenner is ill, it increases the risk that he could die sooner than later. And then that justice for Dylan is kind of lacking. And the potential information you could get from him is completely gone. Because if he's not alive, he can't talk. He can't reveal the information. So you want him to be somewhat healthy, right? But, in this case, Candice Cooley's saying he's not ill. Could you call that a contradiction? could argue there is a contradiction there. Because from what Glorindellen said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Glorindellen, but from what I can remember, and from what the other witness said, who was in the court at the time, Brenner appeared ill. He was wearing a face mask. Candice Cooley also confirmed that, at least. A little bit of consistency there, right? But I don't know. I think the witness and Glorindellen, how they saw Brenner, his stance, his body language, he looked ill. He looked a bit rough. Now, was it Glorindellen that spoke to two of the guards within the court about Brenner's health and they agreed? Correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm just trying to remember, right? But there was a level of consistency there with Glorindellen, that other witness, that Brenner appeared ill. Like he could be close to death in a matter of years, something like that. And yet Candice Cooley didn't acknowledge that at all. The complete opposite. Who is right? Is it just a matter of opinion again, based off how you perceive Brenner at the time? That could be a possibility, right? But I think there's been more people overall saying Brenner is ill than people saying Brenner's healthy. I've only really heard Candice Cooley say Brenner is okay. So, I mean, Candice Cooley is there to see it. But could there be a level of denial? And you might think, why? That denial of, it's hard to believe that if Brenner is ill and he does pass away, then we don't get the true justice and we don't get the location of where Dylan's remains are at if we have to rely on him. That could be the level of denial. The implications, how it could go so wrong, possibly. And maybe with the stubbornness of the individual themselves, that's what's causing like a progress to be slowed down, possibly. We get more into that later on, don't we? We'll be all focused there. Anything else mentioned? Yeah, Candice Cooley did highlight, slightly away from the court case, but there was no evidence at this moment in time that points to anyone else. That's what Candice Cooley said. So, although we may all have our suspicions or ideas that someone did help Brenner, Doug even agrees and thinks that. Candice Cooley kind of on the fence. From what she said, though, the actual evidence doesn't suggest others playing a role. That could be true. I can understand that, right? With the evidence you currently have, nothing points to anyone else. But what about the potential evidence out there which could point to someone else? But people, authority, or the ones themselves who could be a suspect aren't willing to get a hold of that information or hand it in. You get what I'm saying? I've heard recent talks, I don't know how true it is, recent talks where Kurt Wadsworth, Kurt's phone pings, Kurt's text, call logs, conversations on his phone, his data has not been handed in to the police, not been questioned at all. Same possibly applying to Don Hately in a way. Kurt not doing a polygraph test, refusing to, yet other people did who are close to Dylan in some way or another. You get what I'm saying? There's potential evidence out there which could be collected and it might point to another individual being involved. But is anyone making any moves to get a hold of that information, that evidence? Doesn't seem to be the case. And if there are other people involved, those other people out there aren't really willing to hand themselves in or hand in any evidence. They're keeping far away. It makes sense, right? Do we do another poll right now? Right, the poll can be, okay, no evidence at this moment pointing to anyone else, but do you think that there is potential evidence out there which could incriminate another individual, but not much has been done about it to get hold of it? Feel free to vote. Right. Yes, there is other evidence out there which could incriminate somebody else, but not much has been done. No, there's no more evidence out there at all. And maybe the other option, I don't know. Keep it basic, okay? Next piece, tying evidence discussion. Candice Cooley did say that all evidence is within public information. All evidence. Now, I think she was referring to was it on March, 3rd of March? Yeah, I think it was 3rd of March now, where Brenner was charged, and then that court document was shown on Find Dylan Round's Facebook page by Jazz Girlson. We read through it, and it just gave a summary of what was being talked about. I mean, the video recording, the 27-second one, a piece of key evidence, blood on Brenner's shirt as well. Anything else? Maybe the phone pings, you could call it, and some other stuff. When you hear that, right, all evidence equals public information. It's all in the public eye. It makes you think, oh, so there's nothing else at all. And Candice Cooley was saying there's not really much else to hide. This is it. Unless there is some other things going on, but haven't been obtained yet, right? Maybe you could word it as all the information we've heard of over time and all the other information as well has been collected, the evidence, I mean, and it's all now publicly available, all there, and there's nothing else in the background. But there could be background evidence found maybe in a few days' time, a month, whenever, right? I mean, that makes more sense, that, because you can, even if evidence is processed and it's all been collected, you can still find evidence down the line. I don't know if it still applies to that singular court case or not. Maybe you have to open up a new one, a new trial, but evidence can still always be found down the line. Not everything is found immediately, right? Just depends the case. But yeah, I can imagine to some people it might seem a little bit disappointing, right? Some people thinking, oh, but there must be stuff going on in the background. There must be stuff we've not heard of before. What about this that was briefly touched upon? And now that was worded in a vague way. What, that's public? Well, what is it then? There's got to be more to this. So I can imagine there's a sense of disappointment within some people, right? Am I disappointed? Not really, but there's a little bit of contradictions here and there where Candice Cooley is saying there's a lot going on. There is that digital information, which could be evidence, right? And yet she's saying all evidence has been put out there in the public eye. Yeah, it's like all what's been done has been done, but there's also a lot going on right now, but all the information is public. But there's information going on in the background, which we can't reveal. Yeah, there's a bit of a split down the middle there. So just keep that into mind. We'll carry on reading the rest of the information, and it might make more sense shortly. So Candice Cooley, when referring back to the Dylan Rounds search, Candice says, we are confident we will find Dylan. But Candice Cooley also said, I hope we don't have to rely on Brenner for help. Because it's kind of like betraying Dylan, I guess. But the way Candice Cooley followed the explanation up is a little bit confusing. Okay, it is a little bit confusing. And if you interpret it the wrong way, it can be bad, right? So everyone in the chat watching right now, pissing about, messing about or not, just maintain focus for this moment because it's very important. Are you listening? Okay. So yeah, Candice Cooley, confident to find Dylan Rounds at some point, but she does not want help from Brenner. That stubbornness kicking on in, right? And her follow-up to that was, if we did rely on help from Brenner to find Dylan Rounds successfully, I don't know if I would show up to the court case. And then she says, why relive it all? When you interpret that, it sounds as if you don't want help from the opposition, the one responsible, right? It feels like maybe you're betraying Dylan, but it just doesn't feel right being helped by the killer after everything that's gone on. But if there is a level of success, then you're not wanting to show up at the court case to see it all through. I don't understand. It sounds as if they want everything delayed. I can understand just a standard mentality of, we are the parents, we should be able to find our son, right? And then also the side motive of, why should we even listen, give the time of day to that killer responsible for taking our son away? We don't want his help, we don't want his charity, we don't want anything from them. We just want to find Dylan. I can understand that. But the bit about not wanting to show up at the court case and that it will help bring Dylan home, but why do we have to relive it all? That's what I just can't quite add up. Technically, whenever Candice Cooley or Justin Rounds does an interview on YouTube with news programs, you're constantly reliving it all regardless. And Candice Cooley has acknowledged that herself. Within this interview itself, later, Candice Cooley said, when referring back to how Justin is doing, when they themselves do interviews like on the East Idaho News Channel and have got to talk about it, what's going on, the situation with Dylan, what happened to Dylan, like in the early days, it feels so surreal. It doesn't feel right. It feels weird. It feels bad, negative, right? It feels bad doing interviews because you're reliving it. So why would Candice Cooley say, I don't know if I would show up at the court case when Dylan's found because of the help of Brenner, so we can get justice, a conviction at the same time, but we don't want to relive it, and yet you're reliving it throughout doing all these different interviews? Contradiction. Does everyone understand that? The strangeness behind not wanting help from the bad guy, though it can bring Dylan's closure and remains back home quicker. Sense of avoiding that, so then it delays everything, prolongs it. And the idea that if you was to go through with it initially, you've got to relive it all, even though you're still reliving it when doing all these interviews, aside from relying on Brenner's help. So how's it any different? It's not. All that's happening right now is just delaying everything. Do you understand that? There's some weird contradictions going on there. And as I said, if you read it a certain way, the way Candice Cooley did, it can go wrong. That's what I would say. Okay? Let's move on to the next point. So Candice Cooley was saying and acknowledging that the death penalty has been taken off Brenner. It's no longer going to go through with it. And if you remember, last East Idaho News Channel interview, Candice Cooley and Justin wanted the death penalty on Brenner, for Brenner to go that way. But that's not going to happen anymore. So it might be a level of frustration with her when hearing about it at the time. But I believe it was Glorin Dellen that explained why the death penalty was taken off. And I do feel that there was a couple of more people that highlighted the point as well, that because Brenner snapped, that it wasn't premeditated doesn't equal the death penalty. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I believe that's what Glorin Dellen said, or at least a few other people that were passing it on. I remember one person, I don't know if it was Tom Evans or Indiana, saying that Candice Cooley should never have publicly said that Brenner snapped, because then that's what leads to death penalty being taken right off the table. I mean, who would have concluded or acknowledged that Brenner snapped? if you put Candice Cooley aside, all the interviews she's done, constantly referring back to Brenner snapping, if you just put that aside, like it never happened, it was never talked about, and you got the police coming on in, investigating, the forensics teams, the search and rescue, collecting all the evidence as usual, and the 27-second footage, the incriminating evidence of Brenner cleaning a gun with Dylan's blood on his shirt, that all seems premeditated, right? Would you agree? But then when you bring someone in like Candice Cooley that says, yeah, it was Brenner, it seems likely, yeah, but he snapped. It wasn't planned. No, it wasn't planned, he snapped. That could well be the case, right? It seems likely. But by acknowledging that, do the police, the court, take that into account, which then follows by the death penalty being taken away? If you kept your mouth closed and never talked about Brenner snapping and aimed the narrative as if it was premeditated, then Brenner would receive the death penalty, possibly. Then Candice Cooley and Justin would get their initial wish. Maybe they weren't expecting it to go that way, because Candice Cooley said, I don't know why the death penalty... I can't talk. Candice Cooley said, I don't know why the death penalty has been taken away, but I think we've explained it just now. You think back in the past when it came to the Maryland incident in the 80s, at the time, Brenner shooting someone in the leg. At first, it was treated as attempted murder. But then because of his attorney at the time, they were able to reduce it, make it a bit more lenient, and it was classified as wounding or attempted wounding of an individual, but not fatal. So the charges were lessened, not as serious. So Brenner was able to slip away from that in a way at the time. This time round, though, it wasn't because of the attorney. I think it might be because of Candice Cooley doing all the interviews previous about Brenner snapping. If she said Brenner planned it and it was premeditated, then maybe you do get the death penalty. And if you think about it, when we look throughout history with Bibbins passing it on that Brenner spoke to him about wanting to kill Dylan, and then further back, about 2 years ago, I think, when Dylan Rounds passed information on to Justin, the father, that Brenner wanted to kill Justin at the time because of a disagreement, that want, already in the mind before it's even happened, kind of premeditated, right? And if you think back to the videos I covered, the psychological outlook on Brenner and his potential motives, deep-rooted jealousy, power-age dynamics not quite adding up in his mindset, jealousy because of what Dylan has and how he handles it, ageism maybe as well. Piece that all together, there might be a catalyst, there might be a factor, a trigger point which set Brenner off on that day, like the gate being broken or something near to the grain shed, let's say. But it was already deep-rooted, that hatred towards Dylan, that frustration. So you could say, in a way, premeditated, right? I guess it all depends on how the police, the law enforcement, the FBI, the courts, judges, their outlook on it. But I think it might have been swayed by what Candice Cooley has said in interviews and public ones on official news channels. As I said, correct me if I'm wrong with any of that, list it down below, but yeah, not quite gone well. Though, in my opinion, it's probably better Brenner not receiving the death penalty, only because it means he's alive longer, so he suffers longer whilst locked up. Though I guess if you put on death row, there's times where you end up dying before you actually receive the death sentence, if I'm correct in saying. So it's like a bit of both. Maybe that's what was aimed for Brenner, maybe. But yeah, That aside, let's move on to the next focus point, and this is more towards the recent situation with Lance Kelly, okay? So it's not just the Shack lady who's called out Lance Kelly, it's not just Salty Pancakes as well, but Candice Cooley has also stated it too from yesterday's interview. Just briefly summarise what she had to say. Regarding the event with Lance Kelly, this is all to do with that recent documenting footage of events unfolding where Lance and his family were out there searching for Dylan. They came across that convoy of vehicles heading in the direction of Brenner's burnt down property in Montello, Nevada. Lance at the time associated one thing with another and assumed that this is an investigation by the police, some kind of authorities going down there once again to check on up, maybe to look for Dylan, to find new evidence. And that's how Lance Kelly portrayed it at the time, doing live streams as well, wording it in such a way. And then with it all in the same day, eventually getting to this group of people, this convoy, which ended up going past Brenner's burnt down trailer, all the way up to Bald Eagle Mountain Range at one of the main mines, which we have seen before, which Scott Natal, Les Natal has been to. And when Lance basically approached them and said, what's going on? They said they're rock hounders, collecting rocks, exploring, pretty much it. And they've never heard of Dylan Rounds before, right? Lance Kelly did a video, kind of like summarising it, debunking it and saying, that's it, the end. Okay? Were the earlier videos necessary? Depends. The order it follows in is in the correct order. At least Lance Kelly cleared it up and didn't leave it open-ended. Better than nothing, right? But still, maybe if people, different perspectives, take everything into account with past videos, past titles, then maybe you start seeing it in a more negative light. Candice Cooley, she has had a negative outlook on Lance for quite some time, including Ty Corbin as well. Although Ty Corbin and Lance have separated, parted ways a while back, I think it was of September 2022, around about then, Candice Cooley still has negative outlook on both, but more so referring to Lance Kelly only in recent time, which is interesting. But just to summarise, Candice Cooley, in response to that video by Lance, Candice said in quotes, that video, a 100% set up. That's quite strong words, right? Did any of us ever think it was a set up? Maybe some did. I didn't. I think it was just a simple misunderstanding, but because of the levels of excitedness, opportunistic behaviour to make something out of nothing, but maybe not knowing that at the time, to document it, share it with people online, and get some noise going, people viewing. Maybe that was the main motive and drive for it, right? Something new, something exciting, try and make it appear more mysterious than it actually is, right? Yeah. But the bit about a setup, the way the vehicles were and the people present, I don't know why Candice Cooley was thinking that. Was she assuming that Lance Kelly called all these people up to appear on site and make it seem like it was, you know, some kind of investigation taking place? I think Candice Cooley is wrong there. I think better way of wording it is that rock hounding group were minding their own business, doing their own thing, and then Lance Kelly ended up assuming they were a part of the case when that wasn't, right? Weezer, Montello local, did end up confirming that, I think on the same day earlier on, that they were in town of Montello, I think at the gas station. So I guess visitors calling on in, filling up to go into the mountain range and then go back where they came from. Okay, a little bit of consistency there. As for Weezer, if you're in the background, is there any other confirmation or any additional sightings regarding that rock hounding group? Do they have any affiliation with Lance Kelly? Anything shady going on there? Or is it just genuine people minding their own business, doing their own activities? Just to clear that up, to see if there's any consistency with what Candice Cooley saying that the video was 100% set up. I mean, the only other way of looking at it, right? People involved in the video might not be a part of the setup, but maybe what Candice Cooley is referring to is that opportunistic behaviour by Lance. Lance in his head thought, oh, how could we play this out? Treat it as if it's something to do with Dylan, but it's not, but still do a debunking afterwards so then it doesn't make me look as bad and I still manage to get an audience with all the videos documenting it throughout the day. You could say that's set up because you kind of was thinking in advance, right, if I do this, follow that step, and then that, it's going to work. Possibility. But, you know, you can leave your own thoughts and opinions to what you think down below, okay? Let's move on. Candice Cooley, I think, still referring to Lance Kelly, but wording it in a bit of a vague way, saying they are doing nothing besides making money off Dylan Round's murder. And that's simply it. I mean, you could say that about a range of channels, right? Gets a little bit messy, doesn't it? I mean, you can get people on YouTube that cover true crime, that apply makeup to their face and then say, oh, down below there's my link tree to OnlyFans if you wish to view it. Oh, and then here's a link here. And then there'll be other people out there and stuff, etc. And it just gets a little bit murky, the waters. I guess the main focus is on Lance Kelly because of the fundraisers, this additional raising money to do this and to do that, but then it not actually happening. Seems a little bit, you know, raising money in the name of Dylan Rounds, even though it's a third party thing, which Candice Cooley, Justin and them lot don't approve of because it's third party and it's a little bit dodgy, right? And I have heard people say recently about the dog Arizona Traveler saying do a deep dive. I don't know how I'd do a deep dive on it, like what, start looking into the bank accounts and transactions. That's probably a bit dodgy there, to be honest, to be doing that on YouTube. I mean, we could do like a discussion video just simply saying what happened to it, but I don't know how long the video would be, right? Unless you can fill it in with some other talk in between. I don't know. We'll see how that goes, okay? I'll take that into mind. Candice Cooley also says she wants them to stop. People going out there searching, right? So basically she wants Lance Kelly to stop. But I think the Shack Lady did pop into this, the Shack Lady did pop into this live stream interview and left a question later on saying, is there any way to be able to prevent Lance Kelly from going out there or so? Candice Cooley and Doug saying no, because they're on public BLM land, I believe. That's the correct wording. And you can't stop them from being on public land. You can't just stop them. They can do what they want, right? But maybe when it comes to the evidence scenes, crime scenes, then you're probably doing something wrong there. But if they're on the public land, then they're not doing anything wrong. So they've still got that freedom. But I guess that freedom can be exploited in a way, depending on how you interpret it, right? I'm just trying to think. Wants them to stop. What about other people then? Like, this is the thing. Sure, Lance Kelly could be targeted, called out, because he's been out there searching. But then what about Ty Corbin? But then what about Scott Natal? But what about that some other guy, right? And then this person and that person here and there. What about Pancakes? What about, you know, all the people that have been out there at some point? Why are they not mentioned by Candice Cooley? Why is all the focus on Lance Kelly and really only Lance Kelly? You get what I'm saying? If anyone can answer, feel free. I'm just interested, right? Maybe it's just simply because Lance Kelly hasn't done it as a one-off like others have. He's doing it over and over again, right? Maybe that repetitiveness is what the problem is. Like, this is the thing. Okay, you put aside the questionable factors. Depending how you look on it, and I know not everyone will agree, but in a way, it just goes to show that, let's just say, if you genuinely care about trying to find something, find someone, and somehow you're able to do it very often, it just goes to show that a high level of frequency, consistency, dedication, and questionable, arguably hard work doesn't always pay off. It can actually make you the villain and make you worse off. You know, you put aside all those other questionable factors, you can appear worse off putting in more effort, right? Kind of like if you were a comedian telling jokes, if you were so good at it, it's likely to have a negative impact. There's so much laughter, so many good jokes that it kind of wears off and people become desensitized, or people then develop really high expectations for the next delivery. And when it's not met, it's met with disappointment and complaints. If you're playing a video game and you're too good at it, whilst it's good that you're good at what you do, the consequences, you could be accused of being a hacker because you're so good and people can't comprehend it that you get reported, falsely reported for hacking, and then it leads to a consequence, being shut down, banned, account turned away, etc. If you're a YouTuber, content creator, and you're getting too close to the truth and you're good at finding the truth, the negative is you're more likely to be shut down and silenced, right? So too much of good stuff can lead to bad stuff, right? Does that apply to Lance Kelly? Maybe some people agree with that. I can imagine others won't, but I just wanted to highlight that point, okay? Because Lance has been uploading a lot of videos over time. I have as well, but obviously different format. And, you know, if people are randomly joining right now, feel free to rewind back to the beginning. It is advised, so you don't miss anything at all. As for my video, my coverage, it's to do with making sense of misinformation, tying up loose ends, reinforcing certain points, giving my own thoughts, theories, and other people's, but clearly wording it as theories. An overall general thing is to create noise on a certain question so it could be answered, a certain finding, a certain area which may lead to a resolve or a new lead, and just literally in general keeping the case alive on the YouTube platform. Sure, you get 10 to the dozen. Is it called 10 to the dozen or power of 10? That female YouTube creator that has the blonde long hair. Is it 10 to the dozen? I don't know. It's got the lips as well, where they kind of stick out a little bit. Well, that's probably just because of the thumbnails. I don't know. But she's done videos on the Dylan Rounds case here and there. Hit and miss, not often at all. But it hits hard in awareness because she gets lots of views because she's more of an established, successful channel, right? And then you get Doug, in a way, doing his, you know, interviews with Candice Cooley here and there. But no one else, really no one at all, is doing it every single day, unlike me, right? But ultimately, it just comes down to what can be covered and what can't. If you've got the ideas and you've got the range to be able to do it, then you do it, but not everyone can. Or if you're tied up in multiple cases, then maybe you can't. But as for creating noise and keeping it alive on YouTube, I'd say it's been somewhat successful, right? Just wanted to highlight that in case you were wondering, okay? Was there anything else to highlight to do with the Lance Kelly? Yeah, Doug ended up chipping on in with his own thoughts and opinions, referring back to the $10,000 raised so that Lance Kelly, the family, could buy a cadaver dog, go through the training, and eventually start using it out there, make it a bit more official, their little search team, whatever you call it, going out looking for people. And Doug was saying, 10K, where's the dog? Where's the dog? Where's it gone? Where is it? Did they even get the dog? Yes? No? Not seen it, have you? The only dog-like thing that has shown on up in videos is those coyote puppies. They're not cadaver dogs though. So where's the 10k gone? Maybe the reason why some people are frustrated at times, arguably the lack of transparency maybe, where you believe money is going towards this, but in actual fact it's going elsewhere, but you're not told about it, so you feel a bit betrayed and stabbed in the back maybe. Is that what people think? Is that how people feel? We'll do a poll right now. It's a very dodgy poll, okay? Not dodgy and dodgy that way, but dodgy in a different way. The poll can be, do you feel that 10k money, or roughly 10k that was raised for the cadaver dog, was a scam? Yes, no, I don't know. Feel free to vote. Yeah, I mean, I thought at one point Lance Kelly went quiet, like he spent a week or so elsewhere, and I thought that was to do with the cadaver dog training, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, if it's all going on in the background, they've bought the dog, but they've not really talked about it much, and the training is still ongoing in the background, but Lance and Kimber are able to still do their videos where they're at, then okay, it makes a bit more sense. But who worded it now? Was it Candice Cooley that said cadaver dog training can take up to 6 months, if not longer? If it takes that long, then that's probably why the cadaver dog is not present, because it's doing the training process. But then you think, well, doesn't Lance Kelly need to be present to learn the training and to become more familiar around this cadaver dog, which will be handed on over to him? Because you can't just keep it away for it to do the training and then dump it off to the new owner. You've got to develop a bond, some kind of attachment and understanding, how you cooperate with the dog and how the dog responds to you, right? So you actually need to be there. But Lance Kelly isn't there. He's still in Montello, Nevada doing the videos. So what is really going on there? I mean, I don't know. Because of the way I do my videos, and because I'm focused on the Dylan Rounds case more so, or the Kenny Veach case, or my own random videos in between, I don't feel like I'm in a position to start deep diving into a particular person like that, aside from the case, right? Maybe other people have done that. No, I don't know if it's got like a backlash to it, depending on how you do these deep dives, right? If I have done an analysis of someone, it was more so when defending myself or when someone came after me. So I just sorted out the situation, I sorted out them, right? People start acting like knobs and prats towards me and it causes issues, there will be some kind of consequence, right? But, you know, being realistic, Lance Kelly hasn't caused me any trouble, right? So there's no issues there. Do you understand that? Just like how people in the chat, most people in the chat haven't caused me direct problems, but they may be fucking over one another in the chat here and there at times. But I'm not experiencing that negative side effect, just like how I'm not really experiencing the negative of Lance, because Lance is doing his own thing. So I appreciate that at least, okay? Just trying to think. I mean, Lance Kelly himself doesn't seem as, you know, verbal online in a negative way as some people are. The only issues I've ever had was some of Lance Kelly's audience members that have whinged and whined, bitched and moaned on my channel, as we clearly know. But the same has happened with some of Salty Pancakes viewers bitching, moaning, whinging, whining on my channel. And equally, a couple of Jim Terry Misdirects audience members over time. All over. So it's spread out, which I guess is natural. But I'm just being realistic and honest, okay? But yeah, what was your thing? Candice Cooley. Yeah. Candice Cooley started going back on subject, back on track to do with Dylan, the search for Dylan. That talk about Lance was over and done with in the interview. The next point Candice Cooley mentioned was about 2 weeks ago, they were in Lucin for 4 days straight. Now, can anyone confirm that? if people were out there. Couple of weeks ago, 4 days straight in Lucin. Were the trailers, campers, motorhomes out there at the time on the property or nearby? Because where else would they be stopping, staying at? Would it be Wendover, West Wendover, Montello? Probably not, because when it came to the big push before winter in 2022, Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, and maybe a few others were actually on site at the Grainshed property in their own trailers or at Dylan's farm within Lucin in the desert, pitched up, staying there, living there temporary. But Mob Crew Chris didn't. He had to stay in a hotel or a motel somewhere in Wendover and travel down to Lucin each day. Okay? So I guess this occasion, 2 weeks ago, for 4 days straight, they were probably the family where they were the last time, at Dylan's farm, parked up, or the Grainshed property. But the question I have, about 2 weeks ago, was anyone out there in Lucin, like Ty Corbin, Lance Kelly, a Montello local, Ellen, anyone else? Were you out there at that time? Did you witness any trailers parked up? Did you ever see the family out there? Anyone? The only reason why I say that, is it because I don't believe in what Candice Cooley says about that? No, it's not that. It's just more so, where were they positioned out of interest? Were they in a particular area which could have been close to an area they were searching? That's all I'm wondering, right? So if anyone does know, if anyone did witness anything, list it down below in the comment section, okay? Next point, Candice Cooley says, regarding the washes, and I believe this was responding to Quintessential Organics in the chat. Candy said there's like a total of 15 washes in Lucin. I can't confirm that because I don't know. I'm not an expert when it comes to washes. I have one regularly, but washes in Lucin, I don't know. Ty Corbin, does it add up with what Candice Cooley says? Weezer, is it true that there's only 15 washes out there in Lucin, or is there more? Is it Candice Cooley giving a rough estimation, or is she being for certain 100% accuracy? Anyone confirm? But she also says that, you know, there's 15 washes, and with them like a total of 30 miles. You know, the 30-mile thing, I can't remember now, but what was the total mileage of the Grouse House or the Grouse Creek wash going all the way down into the Lucin area? What was the total mileage there? I don't know if it was like 5 point something miles. That seems awfully short though. If Candice Cooley is saying there's like a total of 30 miles worth of... I wonder if Candice Cooley said a wash was 30 miles in like length, or there was all these washes out there which totaled a total mileage of 30 miles. Whatever, there's different washes out there, so they could all be incorporated as places of interest, Candice Cooley going about these spots, right? But it does seem like the heavy focus and theme is on washes. Guess that's to do with the track marks still, right? Track marks at a wash, associate one thing with another. I don't know. All I would say is, if people in the past were known for driving through the wash before Dylan went missing, just as a normal thing, then maybe it applies when Dylan went missing. Just because there's track marks going through the wash doesn't mean to say that the person drove through there to then bury Dylan. They could have just drove through there to avoid detection and then pop out elsewhere to then dispose of Dylan. Because if you're driving through the wash, you're like lower down, right? Normal ground, drops into the wash, you're down here. You avoid detection from around you, right? Possibility. You can have out of sight. It's a blind spot. Though, understandably, if you are going to bury someone down there in the wash, people aren't likely to see you as easily as if you were on normal ground in the open. So I can understand. It just all comes down to, is there any other additional evidence or future potential evidence of other items, other clues, which reinforce the wash theory where Dylan is at, right? Track marks is one piece of evidence, but I feel like you need a bit more. Like if there was a little bit of clothing, like a rag, or like a blood trace, biological matter, kind of like what was described in the Grainshed property, right? More biological matter but found somewhere within the wash, then it could really strengthen and reinforce the idea, right? I just want to say one thing, and maybe I've forgotten. I've only ever heard it said by Shack Lady and maybe the odd other person about biological matter in the Grainshed property. Has Candice Cooley ever referred to it as biological matter? I just feel like Candice Cooley has never taught about the hole in the Grainshed, the one that was dug up. Anyone? Anyone know? I've just never really heard Candice Cooley refer to it, even when Candice and Justin were in the Grainshed property with Heavy D during that interview, and they were literally sat in front of the hole. And I'm surprised I didn't make a comment of it saying, "Oh, better make sure you don't fall down that hole behind you." You know what I'm saying? The only reason why I say that is because if all evidence, let's be honest, if Candice Cooley has never talked about it in previous videos, I've not heard of it from her directly, never heard it from Justin. That's a form of evidence, right? Biological matter found there. Yet it's not been talked about by Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds at all, / not much. And yet in this recent interview from yesterday, Candice Cooley said, all evidence is processed, all evidence is public information. Then why did I hear about that evidence information from a third-party person then, and not directly from Candice Cooley or official court documents or even news articles? Contradiction, arguably speaking. Okay? So if there's contradictions there, it can bring in the lack of trust that when they say everything has been found, that's not quite the truth. When they say there is no more evidence out there, might not be the truth. When they say that there's no evidence to point to someone else, may not be the truth. There could be, right? Just think of it this way. Yes, you've got to follow the method and procedure of keeping quiet, right? You don't want to, ruin the case, negatively impact it. You don't want to give hints. You don't want to give an incentive for people to visit a certain location to then disrupt it and, harm potential evidence at that scene, that crime scene, right? I understand that. But there's a level of misdirection which could be implemented as well. Saying one thing, but meaning the other, but not saying it. Does that make sense? In the past, we did see it, and Candice Cooley acknowledged it in the early days. Well, not early days, mid-range days of the case, where when the LE accidentally released sensitive information on the case on the public database of NamUs Dylan Round's profile missing report, stating that the key fob was returned back to the trailer. Yet Candice Cooley was advised by the police to go against that and say that's wrong. That was to try and save the case from it collapsing or going wrong, right? Because of the mistake by the police. So there was a level of misdirection there, switching and changing of information. The other known time of misdirection, which Candice Cooley kind of acknowledged and Doug definitely acknowledged in a past live stream interview with those two, was when they were talking about locations that needed to be searched, like the wash. But the way it was worded, either in that video or more so in past videos, that Doug and Candice Cooley concocted a plan to say, go over here, or we're going over there to search that place. But they were actually going in the other direction. They only said what they said public to get all the other nosy people away from the important place and to waste time elsewhere. So you didn't have to worry about people intruding in on you whilst searching, right? So maybe that can apply here with what we've heard of today, when Candice Cooley has said, This hasn't, that hasn't, we don't know. Maybe you do know, or maybe there is something, or more ongoing, or in the process, right? That level of misdirection. That level of misdirection can cause severe trust issues. Someone like Tom Evans, only because he's more vocal about it, he doesn't know what to believe at times. He holds his breath at times when awaiting Candice Cooley's response. He may not always be satisfied with the outcome of the interview, which is all understandable. But I think that misdirection, which the primary cause motive was to use it when dealing with the bad negative forces in this case. But then someone like Tom Evans, who's a good person, who ends up, learning about this misdirection but not knowing the true motive of it, leads to that trust issue in not really believing in what Candice Cooley says, right? It can lead to a lack of stability. If you get the overall picture of what they actually mean, you just think the opposite, right? Doesn't quite apply, but a very rough example, and I did highlight it in the past. Whenever you heard Kurt Wadsworth talk, always described by others as a drunkard bastard, over and over again during interviews. Always drunk, always pissed, maybe with a dress on or not, depends where Ron's got at the time. But that aside, people thought, well, if he's drunk, he says one thing. When he's not drunk, he's saying the other. And I said, as a possible rule of thumb, is only listen to Kurt when he's drunk, because arguably when you're drunk, you may be more likely to tell the truth, let something slip. When you're sober, you've got a bit more control over what you say, what you do. So if you want to eliminate possible misinformation, just listen to when he's drunk, when he may be telling the truth. Now in the Candice Cooley situation, not that it's the same scenario, but if you just wanted to maybe experiment, is when things are said by Candice Cooley at times, and it's a little bit questionable, maybe treat it as a form, an element of misdirection to throw people off the scent in a different direction. So basically think the opposite. I'm not saying that you should, but you could try. Now, is this misdirection done in a bad way by Candice Cooley? I wouldn't say so. It might be more so to simply drive away the negative people so they're going elsewhere. So there's breathing space, and that the important locations or important evidence isn't harmed by them because they're too distracted going elsewhere. Now it makes me think, did the LE do the same thing in the early days with Lance Kelly? Lance Kelly said in one of his interviews that he's been looking at the mountain range because the LE told him to. And I said back then, maybe the LE told him to because they wanted him to be far away from the actual scene of the crime or where Dylan could be at. Just to distract the person. So it feels like that they're important, but they have a role in the case, so to keep themselves happy, keep themselves busy, and away from the real situation. Maybe that's what's happening once again. You never know. There's a lot of psychological warfare going on. Oh yes, there is. Whether it be internal, external, simply in the community. There's always a level of psychological warfare going on. I've analysed humans for over 9+ years. I know exactly how humans can be at times. Not 100% 24/7, but at times, right? Anyway, let's move on. Next point mentioned by Candice Cooley was referring more to Box Elder, LE, the police. Very interesting considering I did bring up the question in a very recent video as a poll. What are the LE doing? Are they still playing a main role in the case, or are they on the back burner? And tying it all in, Candice Cooley said last night that we keep this to ourselves where we're searching, keep it controlled. And about 2 weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, when we were out there for 4 days straight, Box Elder sent out detectives out there to the wash with the family when searching about. Interesting. So they're still taking it seriously. Box Elder are still playing a role, the LE, still involved within it, right? Why did they need to be sent down there? I guess formal procedure, but also, if you go into a place to search for someone and you find something, it's always good to have the right people present at the time to process stuff, to document it, whatever, have maybe the correct equipment. And I just feel that cooperation a little bit better than usual, right? That maybe to some people could be seen as a negative. Candice Cooley having her own way, going where she wants to go, having that power control. People did highlight that, but at least in my opinion, what I would say is it's good how Candice Cooley and whoever else was able to go to a certain spot wherever they want to search, and the detectives came along and followed, but didn't prevent or delay anything. Didn't say, right, get out now, or we're not using this. No, they just were just present like that whilst they got on with trying to search, which is kind of a positive. Bit more loose, bit more freedom to be able to try and look, right, and tick things off the list. Did they find anything? Not from what was mentioned in the interview. No. But yeah, final point, Candice Cooley said, no one chased evidence. Never really had a timeline. Could sound a bit loose, that, trying to understand it, because Candice Cooley has come out with, I don't know if you could call it a consistent timeline of phone pings. That's really the timeline is what Candice Cooley has always come out with. The phone pings of Dylan's phone, how certain events unfolded. But even that timeline, which was provided by Candice Cooley, was a little bit inconsistent, because at some point in the past, the common discussion was it was 3:41 p.m, the final phone ping. Or maybe it was, no, I think it was 3:43 p.m, final phone ping. Yeah, in more recent time, Candice Cooley changed that to 2:51 p.m. And then there was some others changed in between, right? But, you know, if information does switch and change, but then maintains down the line, that's not as bad. That's what I would say. Mistakes can be made, things can be corrected, and then as long as they're in place from there on then and never change again, that's better than if it keeps going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Then where do you go from there? As for Candice Cooley saying no one chased evidence about where Dylan's truck was, what it was doing, I don't know, there's a slight little bit of contradiction there, but maybe Candice Cooley wasn't aware. And I'll say it right now because it was arguably a very important, crucial piece of evidence to suggest whether Dylan's pickup truck was used to dispose of him, yes or no. Yes, then it could lead to the location of where Dylan was dumped. Basically, Dylan's pickup truck, I guess, was taken into the labs or analysed in some way, right? Candice Cooley and Justin, before that even happened, when they got to the farm, I believe on the 30th, looking about, I believe it was Justin that broke into the pickup truck to look about, but I don't know why. If you can look through the windows, why do you need to break into it? What are you looking for to get inside of the truck besides drive it, right? They didn't drive it at the time. But, you know, breaking in was a bit reckless, first of all, let's be honest. And that was done by them. The second part, more importantly, in their defence, they were given the green lights, the green thumbs up to take the vehicle away. So once Dylan's pickup truck was analysed, I think returned back from the labs and all that done, there was no restrictions. Candice Cooley Justin assumed that the vehicle could be driven away and there would be no consequences. But what they were unaware of at the time was when it was driven for the first time since whenever it was last used, the data on that vehicle, the mileage was all wiped. So roughly 100 miles worth of what that pickup truck covered was deleted, just like that. That's not good. If you think about it, if that 100 miles was never lost and that evidence was collected, or Candice Cooley and Justin thought the possibilities of it and decided to let the police know, hey, what about the mileage though? Maybe we need to look at that. If they were aware of it at the time, then they could have checked the mileage and see what direction that truck went in. Did it do a circular? Was it a one like way thing and then back the same way? What was the furthest point it reached? Where did it stop? Note it down, get the coordinates, walk down there, drive down there, start searching about using equipment, and maybe then you could have found Dylan. Possibility, right? But that wasn't possible. So I think that you put aside Brenner holding information, you put aside Candice Cooley's stubbornness, possibility that Dylan's pickup truck could have revealed a lot more information if the mileage was never lost. And that was right at the beginning. So, not that it was done on purpose, but you can say, in a way, things were made harder, more difficult than they should be, right? So I think that's about it. As for all those notes, what I have noticed with time though, these live streams, these updates with Candice Cooley, these interviews, one-on-ones or two-on-ones, they've got shorter with time. In the past, they were over 1 hour long. Some were 2 hours, if not a bit longer. I think one of them might have been 2 hours, 30 minutes, right? That's quite a bit, isn't it? Quite a bit. Yet in recent time, the last couple have been about 40 to 46 minutes, 55 minutes long. Which, what does that highlight? There's not as much to talk about, maybe. Not as much waffling, possibly. I mean, what I will acknowledge, even though there's been these shorter videos, there's been a lot more notes jotted down, right? You've even heard me acknowledge it in past videos saying, wow, I'm actually surprised the amount of notes I took down from this shorter video. So maybe it's not a bad thing. People have said with time, oh, that interview was bad, that was disappointing, oh, I'm not listening to that. And then when I've done my video covering it, looked at certain points, I've been able to find stuff other people didn't find or read correctly or pick up on stuff, right? So I feel once again, and hopefully people are listening, another prediction has come true. Arguably, I have predicted yet another thing correct, right? Besides roughly predicting that this interview would drop near to the end of last week, bordering on to Monday, the other prediction I made, and I don't know how many times I said it, but previous, I said, when that interview drops, right now, in between from then till now, be on the lookout. Be prepared for possible contradictions, switching and changing of information, see if anything like that does occur within the case. And like with the court hearing, differing accounts and opinions there. The evidence situation, everything's public, but that isn't, but this could, and then not much going on, but there is stuff going on. Yeah, you get the idea. So let me know if you've got additional thoughts. You want to share your own experience, your own opinions, your own information, list it down below. If you do have questions, you can list that as well down below. Hopefully you found the video somewhat interesting and maybe you learned something new. We'll see what happens next, time will tell. Still got a couple of videos for me to cover and upload. What I would say is, based off after hearing this interview, my videos and coverage of like videos to upload are still valid, because I did have a feeling that maybe after this update it could clear up some stuff, but realistically I don't think it has. I don't think it has. This could be, you know, what I would say is, if I never heard from that Montello local and I never heard from Glorin Dillon's account and experience out there with the court case hearing, and you just heard it from the horse's mouth, Candice Cooley, then you could treat that this live stream interview was somewhat successful. You learned something new. But most of what Candice Cooley said is what we've heard from some other people, right? Level of consistency, a bit here and there, but maybe more so inconsistencies and a bit of misinformation possibly. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Leave comments down below. If you wish to like the video, feel free to do so. And yeah, thanks for watching. But for now, it's time to go. Goodbye and good night. Yes, one thing I forgot to do, and I said I was going to do it within this video, was check the comments out of the previous video. I just decided to do it in a different order this time. But as you can clearly see, it didn't quite go to plan because I forgot to do it almost. Just let me know in the... Do you know what? We're going to do a poll right now. This is history making. First time ever I have uploaded or created a poll after the videos ended in overtime. Yeah. Anyway, we'll just arrange it to the newest. I can imagine some people are a little bit confused right now, or some people have left the stream too soon and then they think, wait, it didn't end. Well, yeah, it's still ongoing. Just check the newest, start from the bottom. We've not got too many to get through. Just want to see if there's any interesting information, any questions that need to be answered, okay? Linda, oh goody, the two stooges, the know-it-alls. Is that referring to who we think or someone directly within the case? Arizona Traveller, where is the cadaver dog? They reached their goal of 13,000 months ago, they said, but haven't said anything since. Some person called Smokey says, that's what I was saying in your live, AZ. They just live off that money. There will never be a dog. It's going to support their home. Indiana, I don't know. Have you tried leaving a comment on that question with Lance? Someone called Videos saying one is being trained. Indiana replies, can you confirm that? Like, if that really is the case, it kind of ties in line with what I was saying earlier on in this video about maybe training is taking place in the background. But my question would be, doesn't Lance need to be in the presence of the dog to develop that bond? And yeah, it doesn't seem like it because he's doing all these search videos. You know what I'm saying? Just want to say very quickly, because people might randomly join this late on and think, where are we at? Basically, we are in overtime mode. Welcome if you have just joined. It is necessary that you rewind this video back to the start to understand the full picture. Okay, make sure to rewind back to the beginning. So we've got that comment there. What else? Tom Evans, how much money is Doug getting out of this deal he is going with Candice Cooley? This would be interesting to know. I don't think there's money involved, but there's like a level of covering your own back, possibly. Like, if people do get in trouble down the line because of how they've treated the case, interfering, causing disruption, and they get punished. If Doug has done something like that in the past, which I guess some people have claimed is the case, Doug would want to be far away from that. So by siding with Candice Cooley, being in her good books, it makes him seem as more of a, what do you call it? A pet student, teacher's pet kind of thing? Maybe. Anyway, Tom Evans, listening to Candice is maddening. She says one thing this week, but it's the total opposite that she said a month ago. Caroline Middleton, hi Tom, after about 10 minutes I gave up. Not sure where I can muster up what's needed to go and watch the rest. By the sound of it, it would be a waste of my time. Christy, I agree with you both, Tom and Caroline. Well, I feel sorry for you watching this video of mine, which is covering it. But, you know, maybe the style was a little bit better. But I think the only negative was my summary analysis of this interview that took place. My video ended up being longer than theirs, and mine was a summary. Oh, doing all kinds of things different here. All about the Matrix. Yeah. Clee the farmer. Hello, Clee. You've been planting carrots? Interesting. Tom Evans. I don't know why, but I can just imagine Clee being a farmer. I don't know why. It just sounds like it. Anyway, Tom Evans saying, does anybody know what is in the discovery document in Brenner's case? Discovery document? What's a discovery document? Discovery Channel? I don't know. Weezer, Raf, a couple of weeks ago, Bibbins, we'll reserve that comment for another video. Weezer, all under control. So that's all good, that. I think Bibbins also mentioned another place as well, which I've covered in a past video, if you want to check that out. Anyone interested? Jacqueline Rampley, could be blood cloth, like cloth with blood on it, I guess. Indiana, thinking, oh no, please, Indiana, don't tell me it's a long comment. Whew, that's okay then. Yeah, just imagine if Indiana decided to leave a really long comment right at the end of this video. That would be madness. But she says, thinking on what Tom Evans said, that Brenner's statement was far-fetched. And just what does that mean? Unbelievable, I would say. We have Brenner with Dylan's blood on his arms and shirt. Is Brenner going to plead not guilty? Because it was all in some bizarre way nothing but an accident. If so, Brenner would have no problem in letting everyone know where Dylan's body is to prove all of this. As this has not been the case up to now, then Brenner's statement of being far-fetched leaves you wondering even more. Okay. Glenn, Ron, saying no. What do you mean by that? Trailer park supervisor says, Raf, stop looking into this case. You already know too much. You are drawing too much attention to yourself. I mean, arguably speaking, I wouldn't say that's the case. I'm not bringing too much attention to myself because back in November of 2021, over the course of a month, I had over 419,000 views. When it came to the Kenny Veach case, I guess a wave of people came on in at the time. And out of the 400,000+ people watching, didn't really see an extreme, negative increasement of resistance or nasty behaviour. What was going on was ongoing at the time. It is what it was, right? With the Dylan Rounds case, that has dropped off. People have walked away. People aren't showing as much resistance now. The fake this, the fake that has eased off with time because at the end of the day, it's a stamina war and most humans lack that stamina, whether it be physical stamina or mental stamina, depending how you operate within the case, right? I said that since day one, last man standing. Arguably, that's what's happening, right? Lee, hey, Warlight Ref, I found this video of some rock hounds looking around at Rabbit Springs, Utah. Probably the same as Lance came across the other day. The girl looked the same as Lance's video. So I can't play that video just because, I guess, copyright. But if anyone is interested, anyone in the chat right now interested in that rock hounding group Lance Kelly came across, make sure to check my previous video out. I'll provide a link down below in the pinned comment section so you can watch my video first of all. But then make sure to go to the comment section where Lee is and click that link. I have checked it myself and it does go to an actual rock hounding channel. The link is safe, all perfectly fine to click on. And let me know if you notice any similarities between them, people, and the ones Lance came across, okay? And Weezer, because of the name that's mentioned there, or nearby, take notes of it with, the comment you left. I said maybe we can tie it all into a singular video at some point. That can definitely come up shortly. And then is that it? Yeah, that's it for the comments. Okay, so now we can officially say this video is complete now. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. We'll see what happens next, and hopefully I don't forget anything else. And yeah, once again, goodbye and good night.